lot of these reasons have been talked about today, but I wanted to highlight a couple that are near and dear to my heart. We talked about goal-oriented, trained leaders. A big one for me is clear communication. The fabric of any good relationship, personal or professional, is good communication. So military personnel are trained to speak very directly and very clearly. In fact, oftentimes lives depend on it. So how refreshing is it when someone tells you exactly what's going on and why it's going on? How often do we ask questions in our companies where we get a half-baked answer? We get a political answer. We get an answer that we walk away and we're like, God, what did he or she just tell me? So I think one of the big things, at least I get out of military folks that I've worked for, worked with, or I've seen operate in other companies, is that clarity of communication. What's going on and what's important to know. That's a big one for me. The other one, resourcefulness. So there's a book out there called Top Grading, written by a guy by the name of Brad Smart. And Brad is probably, for those HR people in the audience, probably one of the premier experts on hiring and retaining talent. What that book will tell you is the number one attribute to hiring an employee and ensuring their success is resourcefulness. So we're all leaders in this room. We all encounter obstacles every day. What are we expected to do? Figure it out, right? The military expects their servicemen and women to figure it out. Oftentimes the decisions they make don't come with a rule book. They don't have time to ask for help. They don't have time to chew over possible situations or scenarios or answers. They just figure it out. So my big plug for veterans, it's real simple. They're resourceful. And that ties to one of the most detailed research projects that's ever been taken on what attributes make an employee successful. So now let's talk about what can go right, what can go wrong. What are some common mistakes in launching a veteran hiring program? The first one is using the veteran-friendly label as a PR campaign. And I think one of the things that was neat about David Lee at CVS is he talked about the $100 million that are given to veteran-owned businesses. They're walking the talk. So I think the first one is important. Having a veteran hiring program is not about a PR campaign. It's about bringing talent into your organization. So that's a big one. And I think a common maybe misunderstanding with senior management that don't get it, right? Why are we really doing this? Number two, inability to translate military terminology. So this one, God, imagine you're a vet and you walk into an interview and that person, and you've got squad leader on your resume, and that person says, God, what was it like being in charge of police cars? Okay. So do your research. Do your research. If you're a squad leader, you're in charge of 10 to 15 hard-charging men or women. That's a big deal at 22 years old. Do your research. Understand what their resume says. Understand some basic military terminology. Don't embarrass yourself and embarrass your organization by not understanding. Pigeonholing officers and enlisted. So this happens a lot. You hire an officer for leadership. You hire an enlisted guy or gal to get the work done. There's a small apparel company started by a guy by the name of Phil Knight, who was enlisted in the Army. So don't underestimate enlisted. Don't overestimate officers. They came from the military. Doesn't matter. Period. So that's a big one. Remember that. Underutilizing their capabilities. We talked about underemployment. So 9.6 million veterans out there in the workforce, 3.4 are underemployed. 70% of veterans that transition out of the military leave their job in the first year. Why? Awareness. The employer doesn't get it. They don't understand how to use that resource correctly. So that's a big one and one to remember. And as we all go back to our organizations and go back to our jobs, help build the awareness. Help understand. Build that awareness within your company. That's part of our responsibility committing to coming here today. So 3 steps to successful launching a veteran hiring program. Number one, start with the source. Train your HR team. right? Spend the time to make sure they understand. So role definition versus role attributes. If an HR manager is hiring a QC manager, they're going to write a job description about a QC manager. But what are the attributes of that job? Works well under pressure, attention to detail. So focusing on attributes versus job description allows you really to better understand what that military service member can bring to the table. Hidden accomplishments, I think Victor said it, but they're going to talk about we. They're never going to talk about I. So to really understand their accomplishments, active listening. Listen to what they're saying. Yeah, we did this, we did that. Well, God, tell me more about what your role was there. So active listening, listen to what they're saying. And the last one is a little bit of a warning, right? We've all had open positions we're hiring for, right? We put pressure, the hiring manager puts pressure on the HR manager, right? What do they do? The easy path out is to play it safe. You hire somebody who did the same thing for a similar company, and that's who you push forward. So those HR folks can't play it safe, and that's something else you guys have to come back or bring back to your companies. Don't overlook a veteran because HR or the hiring manager wants to play it safe. Understand what they bring to the table. Train your management team. Again, more kudos for CVS. They have a couple of EVPs and SVPs that are behind their initiative. It's a mandate within CVS. So train your management team to build awareness. And then investment in the future. So there's a business moniker that revenue cures all ills. I disagree with that. Leadership cures all ills, right? So hiring vets, investing in leadership is going to pay off for your company, bottom line. And then involve your entire organization, right? That makes it real, but it also creates two-way accountability. So involving your organization, now you owe them an answer on progress. So that's important. It keeps everybody honest. Authenticity. A vet is going to smell something inauthentic because they've lived their lives on clear communication, on understanding exactly what's going on telling folks exactly what's going on and giving their recommendation. If you're inauthentic, they will smell it out right away. So one of the things that we try to do that I would encourage companies to do is translate your culture, your purpose, your core values into a language that veteran's going to understand. So our purpose is all about creating the next best version of our employees and our customers. It's a bigger purpose. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Okay, all right, vet, what was it like? Did you have to get better every day? Absolutely they did. Lives depended on it. They had to perform their job to a standard, and quite frankly, they had to exceed it. Translate your core purpose to a language they understand. Our core values, 1 equals 3. Hire the best, make them better. Loud and clear, communication. Say do is all about accountability. Better, smarter, happier. I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to make you better at your job. Believe. This is a big one. So everybody in the military understands they were part of something bigger than themselves, right? So I can talk to a vet and say, God, this is what we do. You know, we're trying to recreate what we all experience in the military in our company every day, right? So that's an easy one for me. And the last one, aha. It's about coming up with the idea that hadn't been thought of before. Back to resourcefulness. Translate your purpose and your core values to a language they understand. Then they're in. Communicate progress and celebrate success. So back to accountability. Talk about your veteran program, build awareness up and down the organization, and then talk about how you're doing. So close that accountability loop with your company and talk about the successes you've had with your veteran program. And then lastly, open communication with the veterans. How many of us ask employees, hey, how are we doing? What mutual commitments and promises did we make to each other when we started this discussion and we hired you? Ask them, how are we doing? Get that communication going. Get that authenticity. Get that transparency built up with your veteran. And they're not going to be one of those 70% that leave after the first year.